"I'll take you home," the cowboy said after buying 2 Apache women who were being sold like animals. The rain was falling sideways that morning, and it hadn't stopped for hours. Mud covered the ground outside Sheriff Calloway's barn, where a simple auction area had been made with 3 fence posts and a decaying wooden bench. Horses stood uneasy in the storm, their ears moving from the sounds of men's voices and rough laughter. The town's people, mostly ranchers and railroad workers with too much whiskey in their stomachs, stood close together under coats, holding cigars and making weak bids on old tools, broken saddles, and stolen animal skins. But then the sheriff, fat and red-faced, pulled forward something much more unkind. 2 Apache girls, sisters. One was still a child, no older than 15, thin as a willow branch, shaking with fever behind tangled black hair. The other, taller, maybe 24, stood straight and without tears, though the rain had soaked her long skirt and reached into her bones. Her chin stayed up, not once lowering. She didn't pull back when the sheriff pushed her toward the fence. "These 2, he shouted, "come from up north. Orphans found hiding near an empty station house. Untamed, silent, could be cleaned for housework. Good price today, no promises tomorrow." The men laughed, boots splashing in the mud. One said the older one was too proud for cleaning floors, but another claimed she'd break like a horse if you held the reins long enough. A single voice cut through. "I'll take them both." Quiet came, broken only by the sound of rain on hat edges. The speaker was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in simple canvas and leather, with a patched coat over one shoulder. His name was James Harlan, and he hadn't spoken to anyone in that town in weeks. The sheriff blinked. "You what?" Harlan stepped forward. He placed a single silver coin on the crate beside him. No more words, just the coin. "They ride with me now." Lena's eyes narrowed, unsure whether to trust him or fear him more than the others. She had every reason to doubt. He didn't speak again until they were in his wagon, half covered in animal skins, the wheels shaking through wet prairie grass as the rain began to ease. The younger sister curled up and slept, her lips pale, her cough soft but steady. Lena stayed sitting straight. "You buy slaves?" she asked in a cold voice. "No," he said, keeping his eyes on the road. "I buy calm." She tilted her head. "You think we bring you calm?" He shrugged. "Not yet, but maybe you will." What kind of man spoke like that? At his cabin, a simple pine-built place west of the main path, he helped Emma down from the wagon, then pointed to the front room. "You take the bed," he said. "Both of you. I'll stay in the barn." Lena's brows came together. "Why?" He paused in the doorway because it's right, and then he left without another word. The next days were quiet, full of waiting. Lena kept her boots on at night. She didn't sleep more than a few hours. Emma cried out in her fever. James returned each day with fresh plants and soups from the woods, but said little. One morning, Lena woke to find a cedar comb on the table. Another day, a carved spoon. Small gifts, no reasons given. She didn't know whether to keep them or throw them into the fire. The town did not welcome them. When they rode into Dawson's general store for salt and flour, the whispers started right away. Women pulled their children away. An old widow named Mrs. Rowan muttered behind her scarf. Shameful he's brought them to his doorstep like stray dogs. Lena burned with shame. She turned, jaw tight, and reached for her sister's hand. The clerk at the counter refused to look up. "We don't serve." Harlan stepped forward and laid a silver dollar on the counter. "They're with me." It wasn't the first time he had stood like a wall against unkindness, but Lena didn't thank him. That night, she swept the cabin harder than usual, cleaning the same corner of ash over and over. She fixed her sister's shawl, sewed a loose edge on the curtain, and kept busy with hands that shook from things unsaid. James, sitting in the corner polishing gear, watched her with those hard-to-read eyes. "You're not a servant," he said finally. She looked up, sweat shining on her brow. "Then what am I?" "You're a guest." She dropped her gaze again, but something in her chest moved. A memory, perhaps, of the mother who used to braid her hair and call her Wind's daughter. Of the way her father sang while carving arrow shafts in the evening. She hadn't known calm since they were taken. But in this man's quiet, something like safety began to grow. One night, Emma's cough got worse. Her skin burned like fire. Lena panicked, moving from room to room, helpless. James saddled his horse without a word and rode through the dark forest, guided only by moonlight and instinct. He returned at dawn, wet, shaking, with willow bark, boiled tea leaves, and an old mountain healer. By nightfall, Emma's fever broke. Lena sat beside her, brushing the girl's damp hair from her cheek. James watched from the doorway. Their eyes met. She stood, walked to him, and placed her hand on his arm. "Thank you," she whispered. He only nodded. Weeks passed. Snow came in quiet, heavy layers. It softened the rough lines of the hills and turned the forest into a silver place of worship. James taught Emma to tie kindling. Lena began caring for the hens. Sometimes in the quiet of the evening, she sat across from him by the fire, each lost in their own thoughts, but connected by something unseen. He'd offer her the last piece of bread without a word. She'd place a mended glove on his workbench before sunrise. They never said what these actions meant, until one night, the fire crackled low. Emma was asleep in the next room. Lena sat close enough to feel his warmth. "You could have left us," she said. "Why didn't you?" He didn't look at her. Didn't want to. That's simple. He took a long breath. "When I bought you, I didn't know I was buying my own calm." Her mouth opened. A flash of pain crossed her face. "I'm sorry," he added. "You're not mine. You never were. I didn't mean it like that." She stood quickly and left the room. The door clicked behind her. He didn't follow. But the next night, she came to him, found him in the barn fixing a bridle, the lantern casting gold across his face. "If we aren't yours," she asked softly, "then why ride through storm for bark?" He didn't speak at first. Then, "Because I would have done it, even if you hated me." She moved closer. "I don't hate you," she whispered. Their breath hung between them, fogging the cold air. He turned toward her. "You're strong," he said. "Braver than anyone I've known." Lena's throat tightened. She reached for the bridle and took it from his hands. "I can finish that," she said. In the morning, the sheriff came. He stood on the porch, chewing a piece of grass, pleased with himself, as always. "You didn't sign the paper," he said. "They're still listed as unclaimed. I could take them back somewhere else. Nobody'd stop me. James stepped forward. I'd stop you. You'd shoot a lawman. James's eyes went hard. You ain't the law. You're a scavenger. The sheriff placed his hand on his gun belt. Lena appeared in the doorway. This time, she said, "You won't touch us." Behind her, Emma stood holding a hatchet. The sheriff looked at them, at the man in front, the women behind, and saw something he couldn't control. He turned, grumbling, and rode away. That night the fire burned low. Lena sat beside James, hands folded. He reached under the bench and brought out something wrapped in leather. Inside was a ring carved from antler, smooth, pale, marked with feathers and pine leaves. "I don't want to own you," he said, voice shaking. "But I'd be honored if you'd stay as my wife." She stared at the ring, lips parted. Then she looked at him. "You already gave me a home," she whispered, and she took his hand. They were married under the bare winter trees with Emma as witness. No preacher, no town people, just the wind, the pines, and a love born from kindness. Lena wore her mother's shell necklace. James wore a fresh shirt she'd sewn herself. As snowflakes fell gently around them, she kissed his cheek and said, "You are not a man who buys women. You are a man who saves hearts." That night, as the fire glowed in the hearth, Lena sang soft and low, the lullaby her mother once sang to the wind. Emma slept curled under a blanket. James listened with eyes closed. For the first time in years, she felt human again, and he felt complete. Sometimes love isn't loud. Sometimes it arrives on quiet steps, offering a blanket, not a promise. And sometimes the greatest homes are built not from wood, but from patience, firelight, and kindness. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to remember that mercy can heal even the deepest wounds. Thank you for riding along on this story. Drop your location and time one more time if you'd like. And if it touched you, like, send some stars, follow, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. See you in the next tale of courage.